Hello everyone, Jeremy Sanford here. I'm so glad that you joined us on today's webinar entitled The Power of Authentic Leadership Communication and Finding Your Voice. So that's what we want to talk about today. We want to help you to find your authentic voice. Voice is so important because it is what influences people. It is what moves people in a positive direction. And so I want to welcome you today to this webinar. Again, my name is Jeremy Sanford, business growth consultant, keynote speaker. Today, I want to show you what most leaders get backwards. They want to find their voice. They want to use their voice. But in order for you to use your voice to influence people, to impact people, you must first learn how to communicate. So communication comes first, finding your voice comes second, and then influence comes third. Let's break it down into some smaller pieces. It's more than having a voice, and using your voice is more than just talking. Communication is a skill set, but your voice is the impact that comes from using that skill set in an effective way. So again, communication is the skill. Your voice is the impact behind the skill set. Your voice is something that is very personal. Everyone has a voice and is shaped by their personal experiences and their beliefs. Also, voice is purposeful. Your voice is meant to move people, to guide action, and to change outcome. And most people feel like, well, what is my voice? How do I find my voice? Voice is something that you discover over time. You do not find your voice overnight, but you uncover it. You uncover it the more that you communicate, the more that you reflect, and the more that you lead. And many of you that are leaders today, you are trying to figure out, how can I influence my people in a more positive direction? How can I get these people to really get on board? I have the vision, but people are just not moving. It's because you have not discovered your voice and you don't know how to use your voice. So that's what I'm here today to do, is to help you to find your voice. You may have been in leadership for a long time, but guess what? Some of us still don't know what our voice is. We don't know how to find it, and we don't know how to use it, but that's what I'm going to help you with today. First, in order to get to your authentic voice, you must learn how to be a good communicator. Communication is the skill set. Okay. It is the ability to relay information to another individual. Okay. So we must all work on our communication skills. You can never get to your authentic voice until you learn how to communicate clearly. Sometimes learning how to communicate is a skill that takes years of practice. It takes years to learn how to articulate, how to get a message across, not how to sound smart, because a lot of us, we communicate to sound smart, but communication is to get a message through. Okay. Once you identify and really have honed in on how to communicate and worked on the skill set of communication, then you can find your authentic voice. Once you find your authentic voice, the voice that moves people, that is the point where your influence is going to begin to increase, your leadership is going to grow, and your impact is going to expand exponentially. So that is why it's so important for you to find your voice. Communication opens the door. Voice carries you through the door, and once you get through the door, your voice is what impacts the entire room. So we must find our voice, and as a leader, it's so important that you find your voice. Your voice isn't just what you say. It's who you are, what you believe, and how you use it to move people. Okay? I want to give you a quick story and we'll move on. At age 19, I was terrified to communicate. I didn't even know nothing about a voice. All I knew was being a college student, and it seemed like every class that I would take, the first thing that they would do is they would say, we're going to go around the room and we're going to have every single person to tell your name, where you're from, and tell us a little bit about yourself. Do you know that in that particular moment, my palms were sweaty, heart began to race, my mind was scattered. I didn't know what to do. I was just almost panicking. But what I discovered was, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want fear to grip me so bad that I can't even get up and say my name without stuttering and without, sweating profusely. I didn't want fear to grip me anymore. And so what I did was I leaned into it and said, you know what, I'm going to take a communication class and I'm going to attack this fear, and I'm going to be the best communicator you ever heard of, one of the best orators. So I began to attack that fear, to work on my communication skills. I learned that even though I took that class, it took more time to continue to work on communication skills. I joined Toastmasters and several other clubs to help me to hone in on the skill of communication. Working on communication sometimes takes years to master. And even now, I'm still working on my communication. It was nights of practicing my speeches in my dorm room. It was nights working on public speaking, doing different webinars and different trainings. What is the point that I'm making? I could not find my voice until I had mastered communication. So mastering communication is the doorway to discovering your voice. So once you have worked on communication, that's when you can work on discovering what your voice is. And that's what actually moves people. Communication, everybody can communicate. Everybody can talk. Everybody can relay information. But not every person has the ability to use their voice, their unique voice, to move people in a positive direction. So remember this, communication is just the skill. Everybody can communicate, but you have to work to improve your skill set of communication. Let me put it like this. There's levels to playing basketball. Some people play basketball in middle school, some in high school. Every level that you go to requires a sharpened level of skill set. The people in the professional league, they have mastered how to play basketball because it's a skill set. There's people that play basketball that all over the world. Doesn't mean that they're good at it. So communication is just a skill set. You have to work on it constantly so that you can be better at it. So communication includes clarity, structure, your presence when you step onto the stage or in front of an audience. It is your delivery. It is your emotional connection. You may have a leadership role, but doesn't mean that you mastered the skill of communication. You may still be on rookie level. So working on your communication is how you get to finding your voice. And we must all work on our communication skills constantly. I tell people this all the time. The best skill that I have discovered, I went through college, got my master's and all that, is communication. That's the best skill set that you can have. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you don't know how to communicate that you're the smartest person in the room, you won't get the job. So communication is so valuable, but voice is something that happens after you've mastered communication, after you've worked tirelessly to become a better communicator. Voice is the identity behind the communicator. It is your conviction, your perspective, your values, your purpose, and who you're trying to impact. So communication is what gets people to listen. Your voice is what gets people to follow. Let me say that again. Your communication gets people to listen. People will listen. Okay, what do you got to say? We're all ears. But your voice is what gets people to follow you. Examples of great communicators are people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., John F. Kennedy, Winston Churchill, Malcolm X, Maya Angelou, Barack Obama, Tony Robbins. These are some examples of powerful communications that not only powerful communicators, but they also have found their voice. But here's the interesting part. Even though we all look up to them and we can all agree that they have a great communication skill set, and we all can agree that they have found their voice and they're impacting people, they did not just start with the voice. They started learning how to communicate properly and powerfully. And then their voice is what emerged over time, and they began to be confident, and they began to move people. Jesus said specifically, he says, "My sheep know my voice, and a stranger they will not hear." He was letting us know that his sheep knew his voice and they were willing to follow him. Each of you, you have a voice and you have a specific people that you have been called to impact, but you'll never impact them if you do not discover your voice. All right. If you do not know what your voice is and what makes your voice unique, you cannot impact the people that you need to impact. And that's why voice matters. That's why I've decided to help executives to find their voice, because your voice is connected to your calling. Your voice is connected to the people that you have been called to help and called to influence. Your organization can never go to the level that it needs to get to until you have found your authentic voice. So all of those people that I mentioned, they did not find their voice overnight. It came from years of working on their communication. And then when they found their voice, that's when the influence came. Your voice is connected to your story. And guess what? Every person has a story. Every person has a voice. Sometimes it takes time to discover our voice, but we all have a voice. And sometimes people find it over time. They find it over years of communicating, but it takes time to discover your voice. Why is it so important? Why, Jeremy, did you take so much time out of your schedule to talk about voice? It's because voice is what moves teams in a certain direction. Voice is what influences decisions. It is what builds culture. It is what inspires change. And if you don't have a voice and you're just a communicator, that is the reason that people don't follow you. That is the reason why you set out guidelines as a leader and you vision cast and nobody's following you. It's because you have not discovered your voice. But that's what we're here to help. I'm going to give you 5 ways on how to find your authentic voice. Number 1 is you have to study great communicators. I didn't say imitate great communicators. I said study them. Discover what resonates with them. What resonates about them to you? What made Martin Luther King when he spoke? What part of what he did and how he communicated, what a part of that resonated with you? What part of John F. Kennedy and his clarity stands out to you? So you have to study great communicators, find what resonates with you, and that's going to help you to identify what may influence your voice. All right. Look at their tone. Look at their pacing. Look at the emotion that you feel when they speak. So study them, and that'll help you, number 1, to find your voice. Okay. Number 2, identify the story that shaped you. What moment within your life transformed you? What pain did you have to overcome? What victory within your life defines you that makes you unique? Here's the truth. Nobody in this world is exactly like you. Nobody has your exact story, and that's what makes your voice unique. So you have to find that story that really shaped you, and that's going to help you to identify your voice. For me, there's so many stories that I could tell you that have influenced my ability to, or has influenced my voice or shaped my voice. I could tell you about my Achilles injury that I had maybe a few months before my wedding. And I had to push my wedding date back by a couple of months. Terrible, right? I could tell you about how I had a crazy car accident just about 48 hours ago. Could have took my life. I could tell you about how that happened and how I was literally leaving church and had a really bad car accident. These are things that have shaped my voice. Or I can tell you about years ago, before I met my wife, how I was engaged and I had to call the wedding off. All of these things have shaped the person I am today. All right. So your experiences shape your voice. I want you to, number 3, one of the ways that you can find your voice, your authentic voice, is you have to get consistent with speaking. If you're just speaking every couple of months, then there's probably a chance that you finding your voice is going to be a long and drawn out process and you may never find it. But if you are going to find your voice, you have to get consistent with speaking, and you have to do live weekly webinars. You have to find a way for you to speak in front of people so that you're building that muscle and you're learning how to communicate better. You have to practice speaking out loud. You have to teach something on a regular basis. And when you do that, your voice begins to emerge by way of repetition. Number 4 is you have to pay attention to what people repeat back to you. So when you speak in front of people, a lot of times there's something that people give you feedback. Hey, I really like the way that you described that story. Or I really like the way that part that you described in the middle. That really changed everything, or changed my paradigm, shifted as a result of the way that you described that. So people often echo what impact you're making on their life. And then lastly, another way to find your authentic voice is align your voice with your values. What do you deeply believe? What will you never compromise on? What message are you preaching and are you portraying by the life that you're living? That is where you discover your voice. So those are 5 tips on how to discover your voice. And you have to work on your communication, and then your voice is what you discover after you've worked on your communication. Once you discover what your voice is, it's game over. Once you discover what your voice is, people follow, people listen, doors begin to open, and impact begins to change. Here's what I want to say to you as I close. If you are a person and you want to continue to improve your communication, you want to find your authentic leadership voice, and you want to have a greater influence, then shoot me a DM or shoot me an email at jeremy@jeremysanford.com, and we'll help you to find your voice. Everybody has a voice, but the faster you discover yours, the sooner you'll change someone else's life. Thank you so much. Jeremy Sanford here, business growth consultant and keynote speaker. We'll see you in the next one.